Hi, everybody, and welcome. John Kelly, profiler here, and thanks for tuning in. Today, I am really honored and thrilled to have, on Father's Day even, Detective Tim Braun. Tim Braun is a New Jersey, North Jersey, homicide detective. And you've probably heard me mention Tim Braun's name before. And if not, you've probably seen his name before. Tim Braun and his partner, Danny, actually arrested Charles Cullen, the angel of death in New Jersey. Okay, so you're talking about Timmy Braun, one of the finest detectives I've ever met, great homicide detective. I've had the privilege to work with here and there, and I've just learned as much as I could from him. Every time he speaks, I listen. But him and his partner, Danny Baldwin, they definitely did an unbelievable job here and arrested Charles Cullen, the serial killer nurse in New Jersey. You've probably seen it on The Good Nurse, which was a fantastic movie. And I must recommend it. And I really must recommend the documentary where you will see Tim Braun up close and personal on his own doing the documentary. And it's very, very informative. I found it to be extremely, extremely remarkable, I have to tell you. So at this time, I'd like to present a good friend, good colleague, a great homicide detective, retired Tim Braun. Timmy, welcome.
Hey, John, how are you today?
Very good, very good. I can't complain, my friend. It's just so good to be able to see you. We haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
It's been a bit, and I really am glad I'm spending the day with you. You know, the one thing I wanted to ask you, we talked about Charles Cullen, and I was thinking about you captured the worst serial killer. You arrested him and put him in jail, the worst serial killer in New Jersey history. But, based on everything, based on the numbers, based on the years this guy was running around, based on the different hospitals that were passing him around, and you also, and kudos to you big time, made it a point that these hospitals had to be mentioned. These hospitals had to be held accountable for what they were doing, for passing him around. And I just think that it's very noble and remarkable of you that you put that right up in front. I mean, you weren't going to get engaged with doing a documentary or, a movie unless the true story was being told in the book, The Good Nurse. I mean, #1 bestseller, The Good Nurse. I mean, you were up front. And I remember when you just started that book with the author, I mean, you were adamant, okay, that it all had to be told, for the victims and for the families, and just where I'll end and let you speak is, Timmy, how do we know that Charles Cullen isn't the worst serial killer in United States history? Because nobody can convince me they have definite proof that he's not.
Well, I guess there really could be. It's difficult to tell or to put exact numbers on his crimes, just because of the way he committed them. There are many victims of Charles Cullen that he doesn't even realize that he killed because of the method and ways that he used, that he killed these people. One of his part of his MO, I should say, was spiking unused IV bags that were stored on the unit in whether it be a storage closet or a cabinet of some sort, depending on where he worked and how they stored IV bags, unused, ready to go IV bags. So they basically were fresh IV bags. What we learned what he was doing was spiking, going into the storage closet to spike these bags with a variety of different medications, deadly medications. Insulin, in fact, was one of the drugs that he did use to spike these bags. Now, these bags were, he spiked them randomly. And so any nurse going into that storage closet would then pull that bag, load that bag up for their own patient with that particular patient's meds, prescribed meds, but that bag was already hot. That bag was already loaded with the poisons that Cullen had put into them at some point earlier. Unbeknownst to that nurse and what would turn out to be another victim, these people were crashing for unknown reasons. And that started right from the beginning of Cullen's career at St. Barnabas. And so there are many victims that even he doesn't know or realize that that are attributed to him.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just unbelievable that you can have that kind of body count. And the reason I jump in and say, hey, he could be the worst in U.S. history that we know of, because, Gary Ridgway up in Green River held the title. Then another gentleman, I don't say gentleman, but another guy, killer, took the title by, I think, 99. Gary Ridgway admitted to 49, but there's probably another 15 or 20 out there that he hasn't come clean about. Then this other fellow came up and said that he killed 99. Not all those have been confirmed, so I'm not going to give him a lot of credit yet on that. But then I'm sitting back and I'm thinking to myself, look at this Charlie Cullen. And then I'm thinking to myself, the worst serial killers, the ones with the highest body count, are in the medical field. I mean, this is kind of mind blowing, and the hardest may be to catch. For instance, I know Cullen used insulin with some of the murders, and not so easy if somebody's at death's doorstep, to look into or to prove or whatever, right? I mean, it's just not. You and I met before you arrested Charles Cullen. We were working, just had met on another serial case. And then, I met you after you arrested Cullen. I wanted to congratulate you. You and I would talk a little bit here and there about his pathology. But definitely I was not involved in the arrest or anything like that. The other part of it is, we had a bit of a engagement. We worked Atlantic City, and I don't know whatever happened to the Atlantic City serial killer. I don't know if he left town or what we did. We did a pretty decent profile, I think. So we'll see where I never heard any more about him, and I couldn't track that kind of MO. I never saw it again with women laid out like that, right? In a creek or a drainage ditch. And then, of course, you were kind enough to come up and work the Molly Bish case a little with us up in Massachusetts.
Right.
And, you know, I have to tell you that, you know, that the good news is our friend Tim McGuigan, you know, helped bring Molly's
Yep.
body home.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, just amazing. And Timmy and I talk about this on a number of occasions. If he wasn't drinking, he wouldn't have been at the bar, okay, to talk to the sister of the hunter who
Right.
saw a bathing suit out in the woods.
Right.
And like Frank Adamson said, that's a place where bathing suit's not supposed to be.
Exactly.
So that's what Timmy brought the hunter back, and Timmy found the bathing suit, and you know, Timmy did a bang up job. And if he didn't, I mean, she would have never come home. We'd still be missing to this day because you know they found very little of her remains, right? But I can't thank you enough for you know all the help you gave us, and you know for all the information you know you bring to the table when we work together, and still more to come. I got a feeling before this. But anyway, what we want to talk about the trainings you're doing. Tell me about the trainings you're doing. I definitely got to make it, but I mean, in watching the video, I mean, the video is so well done. It looks terrific. I mean, I'm really taken back by it. I mean, you know, it makes me want to, you know, go to a training right away. Do you guys have a date on one yet set up, or are you still figuring it out?
We have a couple actually going right now. One up in New Jersey in September. Have one down in Miami-Dade in August. And I have one out in, well, I'm participating and doing a presentation in Chicago in October. And the one in Miami is, I'm doing a segment of a presentation there. So I'm not the sponsor of that particular, or the Chicago and Miami. I've been invited to speak at those conferences, law enforcement conferences.
So, I mean, I have to tell the audience, if anybody in the audience wants to learn something, okay, about serial murder and about, you know, looking at these crimes that are committed, you know, in a medical venue, or, you know, you if you follow the training, it'll bring up other ideas as well about other types of serial murder as well. You know, it's kind of, there's always bits and pieces to everything. These guys are different in their MO, but similar in their psychopathology. Okay, and you have it all. I mean, it's all there. You know, that you brought out with Cullen. You know, the depression, the addiction, the abuse, the child abuse, the trauma. You know, childhood trauma and everything. The attempted suicide. You nailed it all. I mean, it's all there. But to be at a training, and I'm going to make one of those trainings because it is extremely interesting and educating to be hearing this. Okay, now if you I'm talking to the audience. You want to look at this video? We have a link up. We have a link up in the description. It'll take you over to Tim's video and see if you're interested in one of these trainings. And get in touch with them, you know, just message them, okay? They'll get back to you. And, you know, because, I mean, there's so much going on that people do not know about. And it's so important to have this education. Is there anything you want to add to that? Or do you want me to jump into a case that's going on now that you brought to the table that reeks of kind of Charlie Cullen?
Well, just real quick, with regards to these presentations that I'm offering, Uh, the target audiences I'm looking to bring attention and awareness to, naturally, and I say naturally, law enforcement who have to investigate these types of crimes in this environment, and it's a unique environment for law enforcement to go into to conduct an investigation, criminal investigation, be it homicide, as it was in our case, or other types of crimes, many times violent crimes that occur in these institutions. So there are a lot of challenges that are encountered when you go into a healthcare institution as a law enforcement officer. And then also, I'm looking to bring some awareness to healthcare. That's another audience that could benefit from our program, as well as students of criminal justice, nursing, psychology. In those areas, if they're looking to advance themselves into those fields, this could be another type of training and awareness that they can bring when they enter those fields.
Fantastic. And like I said earlier, everybody can learn something. I mean, there's something here for everybody if you're interested in the topic, and also, especially if you're involved in criminal justice or in law enforcement in any which way, or if you're in nursing. I mean, my God, I mean, this covers a wide gamut that people truly aren't that familiar with, you know. When we're looking at Heather Presti, now this is a nurse who is innocent until proven guilty. Okay, she's innocent until proven guilty, but she's just been arrested in Butler County, Pennsylvania, for killing two of her patients, overdosing her patients with insulin at a nursing facility there. Okay. And man, oh man, I mean, you want to talk about, where are we going here, right? And then we look around and I'm seeing like a mini Charlie Cullen or something here. It seems like this woman's been passed along from like 11 facilities, nursing facilities. One of them, I think, is a hospital. So we'll say 10 nursing facilities, one hospital. In 5 years? I mean,
actually, yeah, 4.5, 5 years. Yeah.
This is pretty incredible. This is like being on the express. This is like being on the expressway. And what I'm also seeing is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Timmy, what I'm also seeing is this, this situation where she was abusive to patients, she was abusive to staff members, and she was let go from these other places, and she was passed around from these nursing homes, like Cullen was passed around from the hospitals, right? I mean, this is like, deja vu all over again. I mean, it's like, crazy in a way. I mean, it's certainly not at this point, Charlie Cullen time, but this is somebody who allegedly admitted to, killing 2 men in one day. I mean, you just don't start off, killing 2 people in one day. And most serials don't ever start off like that. They have to work their way up to that kind of escalation, and it's part of the way they evolve, right? So, I mean, what do you think about this? And I'm so glad you brought it up to me. Gives us something to really dive into.
Well, this is eerily similar to the Cullen case in several ways. And the only information I've been privy to is primarily the affidavit from the investigators, the arrest affidavit of probable cause that was a 7-page document by the investigating agency. And it's rich with red flags throughout this document. Oftentimes you see red flags post event. Many people, I saw this, I saw that, but they didn't think about it, they didn't act on it. It's always in hindsight that people recognize red flags. But in this case, there are several that very easily could have and should have been recognized by each of these facilities. And in this case with Presti, they were primarily nursing homes, which is target rich with vulnerable victims in their weakest state, and very easy to prey upon. And this is something, to go back to my presentation a little bit, I've opened the scope on the presentation to include nursing home, assisted living, rehabilitation centers, psychiatric facilities, basically inpatient facilities that share common denominators and common challenges, as does a hospital, which was primarily where Cullen had worked and was the focus of our case. But Cullen also worked at one nursing home where he did kill at least one. And in that particular one, he killed a patient that was not his assigned patient on that particular shift. The nurse whose patient that was actually caught the blame for it at the time. And the nursing home, and it was another Pennsylvania nursing home, by the way, that this occurred at. They fired that nurse for killing the patient. Now, there was a common theme, throughout this our case, that the institutions, many, probably most, if not all of them, knew or highly suspected, what Cullen was up to, and either fired him or allowed him to resign without any scrutiny from the outside, whether it be the nursing board or law enforcement or the coroner. They just kind of like pushed him out and hope it didn't come back to bite him. Well, it later came back to bite him, and that seems eerily similar in this case. 11 healthcare facilities with this Presti in 4.5 years. Cullen had 11 facilities in 16 years, which is a lot, in my opinion. Presti, and at each, according to the affidavit, at each facility with Presti, she was let go for some sort of abusive behavior towards patients and staff. What that type of behavior is, it's not indicated, but it does, without any doubt, raise red flags. And how these other institutions, in doing background checks from place to place to place, either they didn't do a thorough background check, or the prior places where she had worked did not give truthful references. And that was another problem with the Cullen case, where truthful references were not given to the next employer. Basically, they were covering their own tracks. That's the bottom line. They were covering up a killer in this case. And, I see some similarities here that same type of behavior from the top administrators of these facilities could possibly been doing the same type of cover up. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very, very concerning. And especially when you see somebody kind of moving at the speed, this woman's been moving at, and we don't see any punishment. And maybe it was brought out, but I didn't see anything about a nursing board or anything like that, like I didn't see, maybe it's there, maybe it's taken place, I don't know. But the licensing board of nurses in Pennsylvania, I mean, I didn't usually, and there could be some kind of intervention there by them that we don't even know, and not yet anyway. We don't even know if this woman was intervened on as well. What is interesting to me, and I know it's interesting to you, is that the two victims that she admitted to allegedly killing, and I have to say that because even though she admitted it, to investigators, she's still innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We're men. You see, we're men. And that, being the, profiler that I am, that's where I start to look, does she have a bone of contention with men? Or, what's that about? What I read in the article was she wanted to do these men a service and put them out of their agony and let them slip into a coma. And boy, that's really nice of you to, take my loved one and, put him out of his agony and kill him. I mean, come on, man, but I can see this, and you and I, from being around, we know a lot of this with serials, and I'm not saying she's a serial. Okay, I'm not saying that yet. She's innocent until proven guilty, but their power and control angle that these people need in their head to keep their worth up, to help them deal with their, whatever else is going on within them, is just an extension of misdirected rage, or what that's for another day for us to kind of really boil that down and take it apart. But Timmy, what I look for, and this better than anybody, we look for serials starting off with animals. Okay, we look at cruelty to animals as being a warning sign, that somebody is having a problem and can be sociopathic or even a psychopath. And, when you brought this out about Heather Presti working for some veterinary hospital, or working in, veterinary hospital, and working with putting dogs, or not just dogs, but other animals asleep, putting them down. Okay. And she did that for a number of years, right? I mean, I don't have it exactly here, but wasn't she doing euthanasia with animals for a number of years, killing them?
According to the affidavit, prior to her becoming a nurse, 14 years actually prior to her becoming a nurse, she was a veterinary technician, and it is outlined in the affidavit that she cared for the critically ill or injured animals and administered anesthesia as part of her duties, and also euthanized animals as part of her duties as a vet tech. Now, I say obviously, I would hope it's obvious that, you know, not every vet tech is a serial killer by no means. But you know, people with tendencies or potential tendencies of to become a serial killer at some point in their life. I mean, what an occupation to have as your testing ground leading up to the ultimate, you know, human victims. So, and you know, that's definitely a serious red flag in this too. You know, it's a training ground. You know, you become
major red flag. Yeah.
they develop their becoming desensitized to death and things of that nature as part of leading up to that next phase or next stage, which become people.
That's what one serial killer told me. He said, you start with the small animals. He said, and then as you desensitize yourself, like you said, okay, he didn't use the word desensitized, you know, as long as you feel okay with it, you know, with killing smaller animals, that's how you work your way up to bigger animals, humans. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this is exactly what you're talking about. This is how it goes. And, you know, pretty much any serial killer that, you know, we've been looking at or, you know, analyzed, you know, it's there. I got to say 90% at least I can find it, you know, 90% of the time. I mean, it's just amazing, you know, what they'll do and how they'll prepare themselves and desensitize themselves, like you said, to kill others.
And that was the case with the couple of serials that I've been involved with. They each had some history with animal torture and things along that line. You know, in their past, Cullen, you know, and a couple others. I don't want to mention names
Yeah, right.
right now. But yeah, there've been a couple others, and studies that I've looked at over the years have also shown that as a precursor type of indicator.
Yeah, there's no.
You could be hunters, fish, you know, serious fishermen. I know that may sound like a little reach, but you know, with the fishermen, you know, you're gutting your fish, you're cleaning your fish, which is part of it. You know, hunters, like, you know, kind of speaks for itself. You know, what you do during hunting your prey, your animals. You know.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you bring that up because you're exactly correct. You even mentioned a fisherman. I was talking to a guy and he told me he caught this gigantic pike, you know. This guy's a serial killer. He's incarcerated. And I said, yeah, well, what did you do with him then? Did you let him go? Because pike really is a great eating fish, you know. He said, nah, I just threw him on the side. And, you know, he just, you know, died. You know, like not throw him back,
Yeah.
you know, just let him choke to death or die without oxygen from being in the water.
Yeah. And they might get the, you know, something out of the dissecting them, cleaning them.
Oh yeah.
Them.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's all part of, that could be part of the, whatever they get from that.
Ritual.
Pie or, you know, whatever. stimulation, I guess, that they might get from that.
It is. It is. It is a high. And you bringing up the addiction of serial murder. See, when you really dig into serial murder, and I'm going to pat myself on the back. I was the first one many years ago to bring up addiction. And that's why I got into it. That's why I got into it, coming from where I came from. And what blew my mind is, if you talk to an addict, usually that's doing drugs or alcohol or whatever, ask them, well, why do you get high? Why do you get high? Well, I get high to feel good. I get high to feel good. Well, we know these serial killers feel good. They get some gratification out of killing people. All right?
Right.
So what it boils down to is, feeling good from killing others. Now, you want to talk about how out there this is, but if they're getting self-gratification from it, and it's a high for them, so feeling good, getting high, okay, by killing others. I mean, how bizarre does it get?
Right. And, along that same line, I'll use Cullen. He told us that had we not stopped him when we did, he would continue. And he told us that during his confession, and had stated it to us several times after. We had quite a bit of interaction with Cullen after his arrest, for up to a couple of years, actually, regular contact with him. But he mentioned that many times, which, made me think a little bit too, because of my other dealings with other cases, with serials. Part of addiction, you have obsession and compulsion. Now that goes for, which to me, obsession, compulsion equals addiction, whether it be alcoholics, drug addicts, gamblers, sex, shopping, that's a compulsion and obsession there. And that's an addiction. Now, these people, their addiction is killing. I mean, it is crazy to sound, but that's what it is. It's an addiction, because it is a obsession and compulsion with them that they cannot control, just like those other addictions. So,
how about living to kill and killing to live?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, they can't stop in most cases, right? And it's just, it's just a very, very, very interesting situation, and it's an interesting dynamic, but it is, bottom line, the truth. And you figured it out. I mean, and let me tell you, obsessive compulsive behavior. Well, we can play with that, because addiction is obsessive compulsive behavior.
Exactly.
Right? So that's just the way it goes. But then they wanted to change. They wanted to move the addiction field out of regular mental health, because the addiction field had such a bad kind of aura around it. So they wanted to separate that from regular, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, or whatever. So addiction was off over here, and it was addiction, but obsessive compulsive behavior was over here.
Right.
Depending on the situation, right? So the other thing, I did some snooping around. I did some research, because I thought to myself, this Heather in a Presti, so very interesting here. And I want to put out, our sincere condolences and sympathies to the families and the victims and friends of the families and friends of the victims. I just want to throw that out there.
And if I may, John.
Yeah.
Now that you bring that up, I have to say kudos to family members in this particular case, especially, as in many others. But in this case in particular, they are the ones who brought it to the attention of law enforcement, not the institution, not the administrators.
Okay, here we go.
Again, I'll go back to Cullen.
Here we go.
Same thing there. There was a whistleblower in one instance, family member in another instance. Before we got involved with Cullen, his two prior law enforcement involvement before our case, they were not brought by hospital administrators in Cullen's case, all of which knew or strongly suspected he was harming people, killing people, not basically, he was killing people, and they knew it. None of the administrators in that case came forward to report him. Now, Somerset did in our case, but the last thing Somerset wanted us to find was what Charlie Cullen was up to. And they made it very difficult, to say the least, for us to find what we found and to make a case against him. And, they were in cover-up mode. I said it then, I'll say it now. And I can say it, I can say it because it happened. They were in cover-up mode, and they did not want us to uncover what we ultimately found. So kudos to these family members here in the Presti case for bringing it. Otherwise, it would not have come to the forefront.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the other part of it too is, when I was doing some research and I thought you'd find this kind of interesting. And you mentioned this earlier, but this is specifically, I looked up specifically some research on female serial killers, because really, usually we're dealing with a male, we're not dealing with a female. And female serial killers tend to target the vulnerable. Does that sound familiar to you? You just talked about it with what they look at. Okay. 39% of female serial killers work in healthcare, and a good number are in nursing. Okay. But 39% of female serial killers are in healthcare. All right. Usually they start in their 20s and 30s. We've seen that pretty much with men. First murder usually takes place in a suburban area. Okay. Who knows? The ill and elderly, okay, are usually their victims. Their MO, the methods of murder are usually poisoning or asphyxiation, because it's hard to, it's not that easy to track. And they like methods that might mimic a natural kind of death, right? So this is some interesting stuff, and I got to say where I got this from. I'm going to go back and buy her book. It's called Just as Deadly by Marissa A. Harrison, from Penn State University. She's in the Harrisburg division. Just as Deadly. But she's nailed a lot of this down. And when you look at our girl here, Miss Heather Presti, I mean, she fits into this like a glove if she's guilty. If she's guilty, she fits like a glove in here,
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting to to see where this goes going forward.
They have to look deeper into this.
Oh yeah,
That being law enforcement. I mean, most homicide cases, the arrest is the culmination of your case.
mm-hmm.
It's the end of the case most of the time. You might have to tighten up some loose ends maybe after the arrest to, solidify it before it moves on to the court system. But in this case and cases similar, the arrest is the beginning of a case, as I see it. They have to go to these other facilities, dig deep, dig hard, and it's not easy. And that's one of the areas that I've chosen to put out there is to law enforcement in these types of cases is to offer guidance, suggestions, assistance, case strategy, because these are unique. It is a unique environment for law enforcement to be in. And there are many, many challenges. And as was the case in the Cullen case, there were 2 prior law enforcement investigations that had taken place looking at Cullen. And the result of their case did not have enough evidence to bring criminal charges. That does not mean they didn't do their job or they failed. They did not fail. It's what happened in the Cullen case was the institutions, weren't as cooperative as the law enforcement agencies expected. And unbeknownst to the law enforcement agencies also, I believe they felt as if the hospital was on the up and up with them, when in fact they were not, because that's exactly what we got from St. Barnabas and several hospitals that we had to deal with. And those were some of the challenges. The obstruction. It was basically obstruction from the hospital administrators and their attorneys. That we had a lot of our issues that we had to confront and overcome. So, and those are some of the challenges. But to go back to where I was, in helping these agencies, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, I have a pretty solid outline to provide to agencies to help guide them in these cases, things to look for, documents to seek that can bolster and strengthen their case. Again, if you're not familiar with this area, and we were not, we had a lot of help and we had a very strong team with us. I had good detectives around me. I was the commander of the unit at the time, and I had a good, strong core of detectives. It wasn't just a 2-man show by no means. We sought and got a lot of help from the outside, professionals, experts from around the country to help support us. And we were able thankfully, to, make an arrest with Cullen within 3 months. And, he did give us a confession statement. And so, yeah, that's one of the areas where I hope to bring and, help out with law enforcement where and when I can, to help strengthen their case and the evidence they will need to build that case.
Timmy, if you don't get him, that guy's still out there killing people.
Yep. And he even said it. That came from the horse's mouth. He said if he wasn't stopped, he'd still be doing it. Now, on the other hand, too, I mentioned law enforcement. If, they choose to do it their way, which is fine, of course, I would extend the same to victims' families and their legal representation to help them, strengthen their civil litigation, should there be any. And this Presti case, there's plenty of issues, civil issues that are blatant and right there, that people need to be held responsible besides Presti, much like the Cullen case. There were a lot of people actually in the Cullen case, administrators who should have been and should be in jail alongside Cullen. That's how bad it was. But I'm not saying that here in Presti, but you definitely have to look at it, for it, and look at it. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's something you said earlier. With the arrest is not the end of the case. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is the beginning of this case. And again, based on what she said, even though she's made admissions, she's innocent until proven guilty, and we're going to see where it goes. But I'll tell you what, man, somebody moving that quickly, with that kind of rage, that kind of anger, moving that fast through nursing homes, coming out of a situation where, for years with all these animals and being desensitized, to death, to putting animals down and everything. And this whole thing really, is square one, right? I mean, this is like square one. Where do we go from here? And there's a nice article written up too that we use some information too from Molly Miller, at the Eagle newspaper down there. And I think the press would have a nice interest in looking into this as well, because this, like you said, this stuff is so new, not only to law enforcement, it's so new to and shocking to community. Like you got a nurse that's supposed to take care of you and help you and nurture you back to life, and and put all her care and concern into you when you're one of her patients, not kill you. Right.
Exactly.
We talk about killing as an addiction. Whoa, this is pretty evil, crazy stuff. And I think all hands on deck for this one, really. All hands on deck.
Even with Presti's admissions, the Pennsylvania authorities are still going to have to, build the case on top of her admissions. You have to find supporting evidence. And in this case, it'll likely be mostly documentation, various documentation that will support her own admissions. You know, those admissions, by the sounds of it, it does appear that they were made voluntarily and within, you know, within legal boundaries. It appears, you know, she was Mirandized and whatnot, and you know, but you know, that statement can be challenged potentially and be tossed out potentially. It doesn't sound it from what we know so far. Sounds far from it, but you know, you do still have to build a case around it. On rare occasions, you do get people who will admit to crimes, murders, and in fact, they didn't commit it. Why somebody would do that, I have no idea, but it does occur. So you do have to, you know, build a case and with documentation that will support her own admissions.
There it is. I mean, you're hearing it from, you know, the best detective around when it comes to, especially when it comes to, you know, these types of murders. I mean, this is, you know, it's like, you know, you paved a new path with Charles Cullen. I mean, this is just, you know, you opened it up for the world to see. You opened it up to the point where they did a fantastic movie and a fantastic documentary about you and Cullen and everything that went into the investigation. You know, I mean, you're a pathfinder, you know, seriously, because how many people, especially, you know, in a community or even in a small law enforcement team in a community, understand how complicated, you know, this can be and how to take right turns, left turns when you have people putting roadblocks in front of you. How do you get around those roadblocks, right? You had to learn that.
And how do you recognize them? Because they mask them by blatantly lying to your face. But and that was the case in Cullen, the administrators, and we caught them. We caught them in lies, and multiple lies, and they weren't accidental. They were blatant lies and cover up, and thankfully we caught it. We caught it very, very early, and I do suspect in my heart that that's how the other investigations into Cullen prior to ours, that's kind of how they felt. We very easily could have fallen into that same trap, but we caught them in a few, and then a few more, and they weren't just small little you know, fibs. They were blatant lies to cover up their own tracks, and we had them.
Thou shouldn't have lied to Timmy Braun. You know, is there anything else you want to bring out or talk about before we close today? I mean, I'm taking up your whole Father's Day.
Just real quick, I hope that the investigators do continue to dig deeper, because I truly believe that there is more there, and there are more victims. Yeah. I can be wrong. I can be wrong, of course, but I feel very strongly that there are more victims, multiple victims, and possibly might be even a couple more at this last institution where she was, where her victims were, along with the other institutions where she had worked prior. This was not, in my opinion, her first rodeo, so to speak.
Definitely.
And the two victims who did expire, and that she was charged with murder, they were roommates. So not only did she, commit her acts, two in one night, they were roommates. And she basically dosed them at the simultaneously within a short period between the two of them, because they were both transported to local medical center and with the same condition from the same institution within 15 minutes of each other. And it was stated that the nurse, one nurse at the medical center said that was the first time she's ever heard it, or in her long career that she ever saw anything like that. Those type of patients in that condition from the same facility, no less roommates, be brought in. It was, they were intentionally dosed with insulin. And if I'm not mistaken, they were non-diabetic patients. So it was highly suspicious to the medical staff at the medical center where they were transported from the nursing home. So, but that's about it.
Well, what I've got to put out there is that, our audience, we have a great audience, and I'm sure they're finding this very, very interesting. And I hope they, watch the whole show, because it's really, really interesting and educating. Bottom line here is, and this is to our audience, I would like the audience to understand that Charles Cullen is just one case in Tim Braun's repertoire of cases. Tim Braun, when I said he's one of the best detectives in the country, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Over 500 homicide investigations you were involved in, correct?
Give or take.
Okay, give or take, but damn close.
I never put a head count on, but the numbers are up there. As a lead detective or secondary homicide detective with my partners. The numbers are,
North Jersey homicide detective Tim Braun, the cherry at the end of the career on the Sunday was the Cullen case, but before that, around 500 homicides. Who else to learn from? Who else better to learn from, folks? He's talking about the trainings and workshops, seminars, whatever you need. He's the expert. There's nobody better. Okay. And that's just the bottom line, Tim. I mean, I'm not making anything up. Just the bottom line, Thank you for your friendship, for working with me when we've worked together. And hopefully we start working together soon, because I always enjoy your company and going out to eat with you. So anyway, to our audience, thank you so much for your subscriptions, your comments. Please feel free to comment. We love your comments. We'll always get back to you. And to all you dads out there, happy Father's Day. Timmy, anything else before we break?
That's it, John. Thank you very much, and God bless, my friend.
I can't thank you enough for giving us some time today. God bless you. God bless you, and God bless our audience out there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.